Okay, so now we're good. Yeah. If that is Mudira Cat, I think you should use your video. You joined through the a participant link instead of the panelist link. So I've just added you to the panel. If you can use your video. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Can
fine.
you see me?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. So we're good to go. Like I said, today on Women Building Community, as you are aware, it is a monthly show that we discuss women issues. We try to look at the concept of womanhood and how that affects our daily lives, businesses, every aspect of life. So today we'll be talking from our main focus will be to look at the position of women in the society, how it was in the past and how it is now. And of course, when we talk about the position of women, there are a lot of angles from which we could look at it. We could look at it from the angle of education. What is the position of women in education? How was it before and how is it now? Socialization, economics, health and well-being, politics and governance, culture and heritage, communication, community development, religion. You know, there are quite a number of aspects of life that we can actually try to examine what the position of women has been, what it is now, and what is likely going to be in the future. Now, obviously, we might not be able to look at all this totally in depth within the next 1 hour that we have for this show. But as we said, this is a monthly show that is dedicated purely to talking about the issue of women. So if we're not able to go through everything today, definitely next month we would have another episode, and we would be able to, you know, look further into some of these topics and some of these issues. So I've got with me my sisters. I've got, if you just quickly introduce yourself, let's start from Railu.
Railu Hamza. I work from home. I'm a designer and entrepreneur.
Sharifa.
Good morning to you, everyone. I'm Sharifat Akibu Onotade. I'm a social researcher.
Yeah, and Mudiraka.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mudiraka Tosudia. I'm a maths teacher, I'm a youth worker, and I'm also a businesswoman.
Okay, thank you very much. We would want to appeal to everyone here. Please do help us share this, the link to this show on Facebook, on YouTube, and where anybody can also join us on the Zoom discussion. Just a couple of house rules before we go on. If you would have noticed, for those of you on the participant link, you will not be able to use your video or audio at this point. But when we get to the point where we will be taking contributions from the members of the audience, from attendees, then we would allow you to use your audio and you can make your contribution, ask questions and all that. Please do note, just so that we have a very smooth conversation and we're not, we don't have a continuous interruption. So after you've made your contribution, we would likely disable your ability to speak again to use your mic again. But if you do still want to say something, there is the hand raise button on your device. Just, click on that and we would know that you still have something to say, and we would allow you to speak. So we're just doing all this to ensure that we actually all enjoy ourselves with this presentation. And so, like I said, today we'll be talking about the position of women. And we'll be looking at it from the angle of what it was before now, how it is now, and then how it possibly would, look like as we progress into the future. So I'm going to start off the talk by, going straight to Sharifa. So Sharifa, we're going to start with you. And what I would like you to talk about, or what I would like to ask you about, if you give me a minute, is if you look at the position of women today, from what you know, and given your position as somebody who who is engaged in research and all that, if you look at the position of women today, would you think there is a change in the situation of women from the past to the present? If we were to look at the past and the present, is there a change in the position of women?
Okay. I would say there has been a change, but not very significant. Because traditionally across the globe, women used to be caretakers. They used to be educators, artisans, making crafts by hand. Then they also used to go to farming with their husbands and their fathers, and they took care of their homes as wives and mothers. Although there is a few exceptions to these. In some countries, in some nations like in Egypt, Rome, Iran, and Greece, women used to run businesses. They used to own slaves and properties. They had jobs that were as good as that of their male counterparts. Only the poor women among them went farming with their husbands. So, so there is a change to what is going on with women nowadays. Then in terms of marriage, in this time in Europe, in the early time in Europe, let me start with that, it was different from the way marriage is practiced today. Women were used to be denied the right of choosing their husbands, and they would be so young. The girls were typically in their teens, and the boys in their 20s at marriage. The bride's family will pay the dowry, to the boy in marriage, unlike nowadays that is the wife that will collect the dowry. Also, okay, let me just see. Give me a second.
Yeah, while we're waiting to come to you. Now, Mudira, let's look at it from the historical angle. In terms of women in modern days, is there really a concept of women in modern days? And is there really a change? I'm deliberately using the word change because there has been, I've come across a couple of research work that said that there has not been any change in the position of women. Rather, what has happened is that there's been a continuation in the way women are being treated. So in terms of history, in modern history, is there really any significant change about women?
Yeah, I would say there's significant change, because in modern history, women have been influential, and there are lots of women that have made paradigm shifting impacts in their fields. We have so many examples. For instance, Rosa Parks. She was named the First Lady of Civil Rights by the Congress in America. In our time, there used to be racial segregation in America, where the white people used different facilities from the ones that were used by the Black people.
So would you really say that is a change, or that's okay? It wasn't particular to women, was it? It was just, you know, generally Black people were being discriminated. It was a woman who led.
Yes, that's where I'm going to. It was an action that led to movements that stopped racial segregation in that community then. For example, in a time in the bus, the Black people had to stand up for the white people. So one day she was so courageous, she was really determined. She refused to give up her seat to a white man. And that action that day led to the Montgomery boycotts. The Black people in the community then had to boycott the Montgomery buses for over 1 year. Then other movements were created to stop racial segregation. Till date, they're still in the struggle, but there's nothing of such anymore. All people of all races use the same facilities.
Okay, so if I understand what you're saying, it's like saying that really women at every point in history have always, you know, at some point have a voice. There has been some exception to women not having a voice of their own, because I
sorry, if I can comment there. I think what I understand from what she's saying was that the action of a woman actually led to a movement that drastic change within the society. And if you look at that, it's actually not peculiar to the Montgomery case. We look at Islam. The change in women in Islam for me was kind of quite interesting, because if you look at prior to Islam, we had women were being suppressed and they were being oppressed and they were used as tools. The men actually didn't consider them, and most especially because Islam came from the Arabian Peninsula, so I'm actually particular with that. You could see that the treatment of women was very, very backward. They didn't actually consider them as anything. Of course, there were women who were in forefront, like Khadija, the wife of Prophet Radiallahu Anha. She was a businesswoman. You have to be a prestigious person to be relevant. But if you're not, then you're relegated. You're actually not counted. They didn't call you for anything. You weren't involved in anything. But when Islam came, you found out that women were in the forefront of the movement. Interestingly, it was actually a woman. The very first person who accepted Islam was a woman. The very first person, among the very first people who died for Islam, was a woman from the family of Yasser. So you see, and the women made a lot of changes. They did a lot of things. For me, what I found interesting was the fact that when Islam came, women had a lot of contribution. They were in the forefront. They went on expedition with the Prophet. They were in medicine. They were in art, education, everywhere. Even the Prophet made a reference to and told his companion that you can learn half of your faith from this rosy chick. He was referring to Aisha. But if you look at today, interestingly, people say Islam relegates women, doesn't give a woman a voice. You see that it's like we're going back to the pre-Islamic era where the woman didn't have a voice. Islam came, he gave her a voice, she was strengthened. After Islam, all women were very, now in today's age, as we're going forward, you're seeing a lot of movements coming up because women are not given a right. Women are not being heard. That is alien to Islam.
Can I come in there? Because I think I want to go back to Sharifa now, because, you know, Sharifa, you were trying to make a point about, because what Railu is alluding to now is that prior to at least the advent of Islam, yes, we could see that women had no voice. but or rather they're not being treated, they were not being given the right positions that they should have, quote and unquote. However, with Islam, there were some changes. But you were saying something interesting about the fact that, about the way women were historically, what was their position? And you were trying to make, you were actually making a point about the fact that they were involved in so many aspects of life. But could you expatiate more on that? Were they actually involved, or were they being used? Because, this is something that we can, they're used and they're not recognized. That's what I can understand from what both Railu and Mudiraka, sort of alluded to, but that you have this pocket of occasional differences where you have women who actually come up and do something. So, Sharifa, can you talk more on that, please?
Yes, as I was saying, I just want to be specific. In explaining what the women went through and how they were seen at that time. In some societies in Europe, they were not given the right to inherit properties or to be legal owners of money they earned themselves until around 1870. Then after a few decades, husbands and wives, they can equally inherit each other. Although in the case of Nigeria, it didn't happen until like about 40 years ago, when the 1978 Land Use Act allowed women to own properties. So until today, there are some customary laws in Nigeria that still don't allow female descendants to inherit from their fathers. Through the 16th and 17th century, women began to work as teachers, lawyers, and midwives. And there was an industrial revolution in the 19th century as well, which transformed Europe and the United States. For most of Africa, it was around the 20th century. And the domestic system of production, the way they used to do things with their hands, like peasant farmers and things like that, it was automatically replaced by mechanized farming, and technology was more sophisticated, and there was mass production. That created wealth for many, but also laid off many people from work, including women. Very recently, around the 20th century, there were more occupations that were opened for women, including like policing that in the past, you won't find women in such occupation. It's only meant for male. But still today, there are some occupations that still hire more men than women. Example is in construction industry. It comprises of about 90% men. Now, that's for the past.
Okay. Now, before you go into the present, I think I want to go to Mudiraka at this point. Mudira, you were saying something about what the Segregation Act and what was done by a woman, which led to that issue being tackled. Now, Sharifa just said something about the fact that most at those early years, that women were not really, they were doing all those things, but they were not really allowed in some area. But people have actually said that women had impact in most aspects of our human development, even in the past. Can you is there anything you want to say to that, Dira?
Yeah, women have done a lot. We have several examples, several women. For example, Dorothy Hodgkins. She was a distinguished British chemist, but she was the one that advanced the technique of X-ray. When patients with internal injury had to go for X-ray. Today, X-ray is still being used. Although there are other options like ultrasound, CCTV, whatever. Also, we have women in politics. these days, for example, Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel was formerly a research scientist, but now she's the Chancellor of Germany.
But before now, were there women in politics really? And how long ago did we really get into women being in politics?
As from early 20th centuries, we started having women fighting for women's suffrages, fighting for politics. So, for example, Emily Davidson, she was the one that fought for women's suffrages in Britain then. And she also fought for votes for women. Then, till today, women can vote around the world. Also, we have some women that participated in education. Although then, so in the early 20th century, we started having women in education till date. For example, Phumzile Mlambo, she's now the Secretary General and Executive Director of UN Women. Prior to that, from 2013, prior to that, she was the Deputy President of South Africa. That was 2005 to 2008. And she was overseeing programs that combat education and bringing growing economy to the poor people, especially women. She was a teacher. Then she dedicated her life to the women's rights, equality, and social justice.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Now, what the issue I would like us to address now is that usually, and I think somebody already mentioned that from the participants in the charts, and I will be taking this to Railu. There is that concept that women are usually the weaker sex, and also that is talking about women generally. And there is now also the specific notion that Muslim women are particularly oppressed. So these are two concepts that, in terms of if you want to talk about women in the past, in the present, and some people would even say that up till now, Muslim women are oppressed. So Railu, do you want to say something about that in terms of, are women really the weaker sex? And in Islam, are women really oppressed?
Before I actually address that, I wanted to say something on what Shirley said, and that is the fact that she made mention of some jobs that women are not so represented in, like that of construction. And I wanted to just refer us back to last month's discussion. We were talking about if being a woman was more of a biological thing or an ideological thing, how you think yourself. And I think at the end of the day, we agreed it's both. It's a combination of the way you were created as a woman, and then also how you feel, how you think. So for me, based on the way we are created, we weren't created to be the weaker. Allah created, and if you look at the Quran, many places Allah will say the man and the woman, or you believe, both men, believing men, believing women. So it's always at par. But the bottom line is this, that we were created with different responsibilities. We were created to serve a particular purpose. So when you're designed to serve it's like you go to university to learn a particular course, and you get skills in that course. And when you do it well. So I also see the case of some women feeling, I don't believe that we need to fill every job. This is just my personal opinion. I don't believe
I think that's something that is actually debatable in terms of,
like I said, this is my opinion because of the way we were built. Like in the case of construction, I don't feel, yes, there are women there. I've worked in something like that before, but I'm just saying that these are not a way for me to measure whether women have changed.
Exactly.
This is exactly what I'm trying to say. So if we look at whether women are being oppressed or not, like I mentioned earlier on, prior to Islam, we know that from history, the way women were treated. And unfortunately, or due to lack of, I won't use the word unfortunate, due to lack of knowledge, it's amazing what this piece of cloth that we all have on our head can actually do to society. So we believe that once you put on this piece of cloth, then your brain has been compressed. You have been oppressed. You don't have a voice. Your voice has been taken away, things like that. So, and it's quite surprising. And like I said the change of women in Islam is quite interesting, because prior to Islam, you have women didn't have a voice. They were not relevant. They were not involved. But even the Prophet ﷺ used to his wife to seek advice. The first time he had revelation, who did he run to? He didn't say, yeah, I have a wife, she's the weaker sex. He ran to his wife. It was she that actually gave him confidence to say, no, you're not crazy. Stand by. She was his first believer. She was a very strong girl. She was his supporter. If you even look at, okay, let's even let all that go. When the prophet, where you can say whether the woman is the weaker sex or not, the Prophet ﷺ, the prophet, the best of mankind, he used to take women on military expeditions. They used to go with him. During the Battle of Uhud, where the Muslims, during the battle, they lost at first. And then they had to go back to fight. So very few companions were left with the Prophet when they went back. It was a woman by the name of Amara. She was the one that shielded the Prophet with her body. And she was fighting off enemies with her bow and arrow. She had a lot of wounds. I think she was cut on the shoulder.
Can I say that? Does that mean that women can actually join the army?
Absolutely. From Islam, that is what we're saying. Women were in the forefront. And there's this other woman who fought in, what's her name? Asma bint Yazil. She killed 9 enemies. She was involved in almost all the battles. And we're told that she killed 9 enemies in one of the Battle of Yarmouk. And you see women always in the forefront. They were not just there. Yes, they were there as the nurses. They were there providing medical facilities for the people who were injured. They actually helped carry back the materials from the battle. They helped to bury the dead. The contribution of women. So if they were the weaker sex, like I said earlier, based on the way we were created, our emotion, which is one of the things that I think is really core as a mother. We need that emotion to be a mother, to be loved. And I think that's what Allah gave us, that extra status. That said, if you for any good, do good to your mother, to your mother, to your mother, then your father. It's that emotion, that love that Allah has given, that compassion that makes us kind of emotional in some cases, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being emotional, but that doesn't make us weak. We used to joke about, we say, and I don't think this is a joke. I strongly believe that women are more emotionally strong than men.
We have more emotional intelligence.
I'm raising, there have been great women around the world in spite of all odds against women. The most notable one to me as a Nigerian is Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who happens to be the former Minister of Finance and the former Minister of Foreign Affairs in Nigeria. She held a very prestigious post of the Managing Director of the World Bank in the United States. It's something very, very impressive to me. We can find out more about how she became so prominent.
Mudira, we will come to you. Let her just make her point and then we'll come to you.
How she reached that important rank as a woman. Another great woman worth mentioning is Margaret Thatcher, who was the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom just in the past few decades.
Overall, I'm sure a lot of that is, they're talking about politics. Some people would question you about our greatness, actually, but that's not the context under which we are talking. We're talking more about women and the kind of impact they have made. So I really, really do agree with you in terms of we're not into the politics of it. So we're talking about women and the impacts they've made around the world. That's really good. Mudira, you wanted to say something.
Hey, I want you to support Sister Arolu on what she said about women. For example, Aba women riots in Nigeria. Aba women riots happened during the colonial administration in Nigeria then. In 1914, Lord Lugard was the governor. So he instituted the indirect rule system of government in the southern part of Nigeria. And the plan was that the British administrators will work through warrant chiefs. Warrant chiefs were the Igbo men that were elected into power. So after a few years, the warrant chiefs became increasingly oppressive. They seized properties, they imposed local regulations, they imprisoned people that criticized them openly. So women, then the British administration worsened the case. They now announced that they were going to introduce, they were going to start introduce special taxes on market women. You know what the southeastern part of Nigeria women did? They congregated at the British administrative centers in Owerri, Calabar, and the small cities, small towns in the southeastern part of Nigeria. They were just women. They dressed up. They used this Igbo traditional practice. They were singing all night. They were dancing. They went to court. They burnt court down. They went to they forced the warrant chiefs to resign their positions. They even went to European store owners. They attacked them. They went to prison. They released prisoners. So even the British administration in Nigeria then and West Africa found their protest as a major challenge. And they had to stop the taxes they were to impose on them. And they curbed the the warrant chiefs. They curbed their power.
What I'm getting from everything you are all saying is that it really, if we're to look at the position of women before now, we've always had to struggle. And a lot of time, women are not only struggling about their own issues, they're also struggling about, general issues, community development, who should better treatment for people and all that. So in a way, I tend to want to think from what we're saying here that in terms of what people see as change, where they say, oh, the position of women has actually changed, women are better equipped now than they used to be. There seems to be this tendency for us to indicate from our discussion that women have always, done something. They've always eventually find a way of having voices. Perhaps what we've had is just, a continuation of what has always been, but maybe evolving into, something different. Now, that will lead me to ask a very...
Rashida, before you continue, Rashida, let me just bring in the panels. I want to read their comments before we continue.
Okay, go on, please.
And go ahead with that. So we had a sister, Falilat Alabi. She said, women have always been portrayed as the weaker sex. So as WBC motto, it's up to women to raise their voices. She also said, the change we're talking about is not by shouting, but by claiming our place in the society through our involvement in progressive action, which is well said. That is well said. We have another HA. He said, it is not necessarily true that women are more emotionally intelligent. I think a lot of you will debate that, but women are more emotionally expressive.
Well, I like that choice of word. Whether it's emotional intelligence or emotional expressiveness, the important thing is that in terms of emotions, women seem to have a better way of handling it. I think that's that's what. We seem to be able to handle it. Now, I wanted to ask a question. If we really look at it, people talk about the golden age of women. Now, I have always found that a bit problematic. I found it problematic in the sense that from what you are saying, like Railu was saying earlier on, she's saying that Islam came and gave women very strong positions. But it seemed that we're going back to the time when women did not have the right position. So the question that always comes to my mind is, when was there, or is there actually a golden age for women? I think I want Sherifa to talk on this. Is that can we say, okay, when you say the golden age, that's the way people put it, the golden age of women. Was it in the past? Is it now, or is it in the future? Sherifa.
Well, what I can say here is that the best of the time for let me start from African women. Yeah. The best of time for them is before the colonization and during the colonization. And now I explain what I mean by that. Even though there is a data gap in history of Africa as regards golden age for women. But drawing on the recent statistical records, the pre-colonial era, it saw women's participation in social and economic growth of nations. In the 19th century, in which the colonial era is part of, it gave some opportunities, more opportunities for women liberation through abolition of slavery and slave trade, as well as the introduction of cash crops. And so, even if it's not so golden, we can still regard this time as the best time for women in Africa. Then the golden age for women is more pronounced in England, specifically in the city of London, according to one researcher, Caroline Barron, in 1989. The wide range of job opportunities that were available for women towards the end of the Middle Ages make the time the best for European women. However, our claim was later refuted by Marjorie McIntosh in 2005, stating that those jobs that they were claiming that were the best for women at that time were of very low levels and less profitable compared to that the jobs men were into. The McIntosh also claimed that not so many of those women succeeded in elite positions or professions, and therefore those opportunities fell very short of being constituting a golden age for women. So Africa, Europe, we can't really say we have ever had a golden age.
So is there a hope of a golden age, if there is any, if that concept is even right in itself? Anyway, well, I think right now, at this point, I want to try and bring in some members of the audience. If there is anybody in the audience that wants to contribute to our discussion, that wants to say a few words on some of the issues that we have discussed, please feel free to raise your hand. Just press on the hand raise button and we would allow you to talk. So, so while we're waiting for anybody who is interested amongst the audience to make a contribution, I would like to go straight to Railu again. Now, Sherifa has just, given us a very beautiful analysis of why we can't possibly say that there's been a golden age for women. And it doesn't seem as if she thinks there is going to be a golden age for women. So what would you say in terms of looking at it from the, as a Muslim, from the Islamic perspective, would you say that there was a golden age, or there is a golden age, or there is possibly going to be a golden age for women, especially looking at it from the perspective of Islam?
I will say women we had a golden age. And again, for me, I always say one of the tragedy of our time is that we forget our past, especially as Muslim women. We don't know our past. We don't know where we're coming from. I'm not specific. That includes myself. We really don't know the history of the Muslim woman. I think we should spend time to find out what those great women did. They were women. They were given a voice. They were given all the rights that women are fighting for now, that we're struggling to get. It was like placed on a platter of gold for the Muslim women. And there was even a time when, which is quite interesting, we all know Umar to be very, one of the bravest companion of the Prophet. So there was a time in the time of Umar when he was a caliph of the Muslim. And he wanted to, there was that the dowry thing is getting too high and we need to like put a hole to it, put a cap to it, like they normally put a cap on immigration. So they wanted to put a cap to the dowry. And the men were discussing. So a woman got up from behind and she said, yeah, Amir Muminin, you cannot put a restriction on something that Allah left open. I mean, it is our right to demand whatever dowry that we want to demand. You can't come here and put a cap on it. And what did Umar say? He said the woman is right and Umar is wrong. You know, and there was this verse of the Quran, I think it's in Surah Al-Mujadala, where Allah actually revealed. There was a woman that had an issue with her husband. She went to the Prophet ﷺ and she was complaining about her husband. But because Prophet ﷺ, he didn't get any revelation, you know. He didn't say, oh, woman, shut up. Oh, woman, go back. Oh, woman, do this. He kept quiet because he didn't know what to say. And the woman got angry. She was raising her voice. And this is Rasulullah ﷺ. The Allah says, if you raise your voice against, all your good deeds will just be discarded. So the woman was very angry and she was raising her voice. And what did Allah say? Allah revealed the verse and Allah said, we heard the complaint of the woman. You know, Allah did not reveal the verse and say, oh, you woman, you have raised your voice. Oh, you, but Allah said,
Railu, I'll just interrupt you there because I've got Falila Talabi from the audience raising her hand. So we can allow her to do a contribution, and then I'll read one of the other messages from on the chat from one of the participants also. So Falilat, if you can just quickly make your contribution, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum
salam.
Yeah, I wanted to contribute on the part of women having a golden age.
Yeah.
Yes, we actually have a golden age in the sense, you know, of productivity. I'll come in from the part of being, you know, motherhood, homemaking. You know, there is this saying that a woman will get to, you know, you get to the part that you cannot produce anymore, that you cannot have a child anymore. So because of that, we really have golden age. So we have to do things in our prime. There are times that, you know, in our life that we do things that are expected of us at a particular time of livelihood. So that is the part that I will agree that we have golden age. But
so you are, what I seem to understand is that you are saying that in terms of individually, yes, we actually have golden age. But if you are talking about the whole concept of women, saying, oh, women generally around the world, would yes, you think that we had a golden age? Perhaps maybe it was early in the olden days, or is it in this our recent future, recent times, or in the future, a golden age where you can say women were actually thriving?
Yes, I would say we have that golden age in the sense that people, you know, women generally have this idea of, you know, not wanting to come out and be the forefront in their family in the olden days. But these days, women are really taking the bulls by the horn. They really want to. So you
think we are in the golden age now?
Yes, we are really, you know, coming out of our shell and wanting to, you know, be recognized and wanting to do something, you know, to be saying that, yes, a woman did this, a woman did that. So we are in the right state of, you know, state of mind, you know, to achieve more now. We are really coming out more than we used to be. That's what
okay. Yeah, okay. I just want.
Yeah, I like that idea that Falilat raised, that in individual lives, we actually have golden age. It depends on the way we utilize it, you know.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah, this is coming from Hadija. She said, women have always participated, but I would like to see women claim their successes and self-promote, owing their own creativity. We need to speak out about our accomplishments. Also, there is a contribution from HA. It says the golden age for women is now. More recognition, respect, pay, and opportunities. Now, that's interesting because that seemed to align with what Falila just said about the fact that now is the golden age for women. But I'm not sure if, because there was something that Railu was saying about the fact that we seem to be going back to the time when women did not have a voice. I really want her to give a brief explanation more what she meant by that, so that we can now see, because we need to actually we want to be able to sync what we're saying together, right?
Now, mashallah, based on your question, whether the Muslim woman had a golden age, how the change that had occurred in the world of the Muslim woman. And again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Before Islam, women were relegated to the back. During Islam, we were in the forefront. And today we had our voice. We spoke for ourselves. We took things into our hands. We made the changes we wanted to see. Like the example I just made of the woman who didn't keep quiet when they were about to fix the dowry. If that woman had kept quiet, today we'll be stuck with that. But she stood up and she said something to the head of the Muslims. But today, what do we find? We find that the Muslim woman, even among the Muslim women, and that's why I say it's the case of the Muslim woman today, for me, it's like a tragedy. Among the Muslim women, we believe most women don't want to be so Islamic, quote and unquote. I don't really know what that means. They want to be moderate Muslim, not because I'm not judging anybody, I'm just saying, because of the fact, because they see what is happening in the so-called Muslim world, where the woman's right is being taken away from her, where a woman is being forced into marriage, where the woman is being, does not have a right to inheritance, where a lot of things are happening. And if you look at it, they say it's Islam. These are coming from the so-called Muslim world. But when we go beyond that, we find out that this is actually not coming from Islam. Rather, it is based on their tradition, which they have woven into their Islam. And a lot of women are trying to run away from that Islam. And people are beginning to say own our voice for us. So they're like helping you to speak out, to say, this Muslim women, we need to help them to speak out.
To get their rights.
So we don't have a voice anymore. We're at the background now. We used to be at the background. Then we came to the forefront. Now we're going back to the background where other people are speaking on our behalf, even when it is not what we want to say, but we still kept quiet. So that's why I said we're going back to the pre-Islamic era. But on the other side, you find out that the other side, women that were not also giving a voice. Women are beginning to come out, and it's now becoming going into different levels where you have some fighting for a lot of causes. But the bottom line is women are taking action. Just the Muslim woman who had a history of, who had a model she could look up to say, yes, these women in the past took action, and we have gone back to the past and depriving our Muslim sisters of actually knowing what Islam truly stands for.
Thank you very much.
Helen.
Yeah, go on, please.
Yeah.
But before you go on, let me just quickly apologize to people that we are running outside of 10. We're supposed to finish at 10, but unfortunately we didn't start exactly 9 o'clock because of the technical problem we had. So for that reason, we would be running this show a bit over time till 10 o'clock, till a bit, maybe about 10:15. So that's just to apologize to people who had planned to just stay with us till 10 o'clock. So go on, Mudira.
Yeah, I want to support, I agree with what Sister Royle said about going back to the pre-Islam era. People wouldn't want to come out because when they are threatened, for example, Shuri Ebadi. Shuri Ebadi is an Iranian lawyer. She fought for democracy and human rights in Iran. She focused on the struggle for women, for the rights of women and children, especially. In fact, she had to create a legal practice, and she was defending people that wanted to be persecuted by the conservative of Iran then.
Yeah.
And because she believed there is no conflict between Islam and fundamental human rights. But she was threatened. Now, then she had to run for her life. Now she's in UK in exile. So you see, she's an example where we're being threatened, where we're scared, we're afraid. So that's why our advice that women out there, all of us, we should have the courage to present image of strength. We should be able to drive success. And we should also be able to resist being vulnerable to abuses, racism, and so on.
Yeah, I think that goes in line with what one of our participants have put on the chat that I just read about the fact that we should start claiming, our successes, and we should start promoting ourselves. We should start, being expressing our creativity. Now, I think we'll just answer one last. We'll look at one last issue. And then maybe, if possible, if anybody in the audience wants to ask us any question, they can type it in the Q&A, or they can raise their hand to ask that question. And what I want us to look at now is, right from what we've said, women have always been at the forefront of trying to, establish ourselves, give a voice to our issues and issues of people around us. And we do seem to have a golden age now. Perhaps we didn't have it earlier on, because earlier on we were not able to, there were a lot of things in place in different society that actually subjugates the women. And but now there seemed to be a golden age where we actually could voice, and that's one of the reasons we're doing the WBC show, give a platform to the women to be able to express themselves and, address issues that are important to us. So yes, we seem to have that age now. And there seem to be no conflict from what Railu have said and what we all know. There is actually absolutely no conflict between Islam and women having a voice. In fact, Islam did give the voice to the woman. And now we are here now, we have the golden age. What do we see as the future? What can actually take that golden age from us? How do we mitigate it? And what is the future for the women? It looks like a double barrel question, but it's actually all related. So I want to start from Railu, and then we'll go to Sherifa Mudraka, and if there is anybody in the audience. What is this? Are there challenges to this, our golden age? What can we do, to retain this golden age? And what is the future like for us? So Railu.
There are challenges, of course, like Sister just said. One of the greatest challenges that women face is opposition to you having a voice. You're trying to have a voice and people are suppressing you, depending on your environment where you are. So sometimes you can, yes, withstand the suppression. You can go against what whoever is trying to hold you back. But when the person, the being or organization try to hold you back, is a very powerful one. You need to, and they don't care what they will do to you. You need to run for your life. I mean, so that you can be protected. So bottom line is that whatever little change you can do, wherever you are, your own space, always, it begins with even the very home that we are. Like in the recent time, we're seeing issue of the rise in domestic abuse and all that. And women are beginning to come out to stand for themselves. The Me Too movement, we all know what that was entailed. And that was because when it was happening, they were afraid of what will happen to them if they had a voice. And those who tried to raise something we are being put to silence. So, but now women have found courage in supporting each other and speaking out. So one of the things that would lead us into a future that we call the golden age is, first of all, being able to speak out. Try to speak out in whatever form. We have a lot of forum now, a lot of platform to speak out. Speak out like this one we're creating now here is a platform for us to share. And also link with women who will support you. There's so much power in numbers. There's power in numbers. Find likely women of like-minded women to support your cause, and find always embark on something that will create the change we want to see. We can't just keep talking about issues. We have to put, like our sister rightly said in her comment, we have to make a change. It's up to us to make that change, and we have to put in actions to make that change. It's not enough to keep talking about this. We have whatever little step, little drop of water will become a mighty ocean. So let's take steps to make whatever change we are at. And inshallah, we will get to that place that we want to see. So be the change that you want to see. That's my
somebody, I'll quickly put in something here that somebody put on the chat. It says we need women leaders within Islamic communities. I think that's something that some of the people watching this episode should also think of, especially within the Muslim community. Are we actually producing enough Muslim women leaders to be role models for, you know, our younger ones? So that's something that I think somebody wanted us to put out there. So if we go to Sharifa quickly, please.
Okay, thank you. For me, there is a need to get things clear to be able to make informed decisions. You know, participation of women in the labor force will continue to boost the economy of the nation. There's no doubt about that. Our impact as women will be felt. But the natural role of women, which we have been prepared for, both physically and psychologically, is to raise new generations. No one can replace women in this role. So there's a need to do that job properly to the best of our ability. And there is also the need to participate in shaping the society, and there are different ways to do that. The key point here is for women to focus on maximizing their potentials as women. There are areas in which women participation is highly demanded. An example is teaching, you know, and in the medical line, of which the service of women are typically needed during maternity. So the future is waiting for women to take on more management and leadership roles. We know that, but and the sky is the limit, as long as it doesn't affect our main role of shaping the future from inside our homes. That is the key thing. We shouldn't neglect that. Then the critical challenge could be for women to believe in themselves and to encourage others women to do so as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Mudiraka?
Yeah, as for me, I believe we need to be empowered. And we should also be ready to empower others. As this will help us to be able to fight for our rights. It will help us to achieve a lot. And I always reflect on the statement made by Oprah Winfrey. She said, think like a queen. A queen is never afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness. So when I think about that, I always have the right to achieve success. I always want to achieve. Although I may have some challenges, but I never give up. So I feel every woman out there should have that courage to continue to struggle for our rights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got another contribution from Adija. She said, we are now on an equal footing in terms of the voice. I don't know if we all agree to that. I'm sure some people would still debate that, but at least that's one thing she's put out there. She said, we are now on an equal footing in terms of the voice, but women need to create supportive relationships, ways like this platform to exchange expertise and opportunity. Thank you very much for that. So what she's saying, I think I quite agree with. And that is the fact that we need to have a supporting system in place for ourselves. We need the woman. There's this saying that, you know, it's very common. People say the enemy of the woman is always the woman. So when you see a woman having issues, for instance, in a workplace, you find that a lot of time also it is a woman that is also the problem. So you see, what she's saying is about, you know, having a supportive relationship amongst ourselves and being able, and it's not working against the opposite sex, it's actually making sure that our society thrives based on the fact that we've got women. And we all know that when it comes to building to society, the person at the forefront is the woman. There's also a contribution. Pardon me?
This comment says, we are not on equal footing yet. And at all levels of the society, there are more men. The enemy is the man.
well, I don't know. I don't know about the enemy being the man, but I do know.
I know the enemy is the woman.
I do know. I'm not saying, okay, let's not have any enemy here. Let's just try to do one thing. And what is that thing? Let us promote ourselves. Let the women actually do something. That's why we call this show Women Building Communities. It's about you doing something for yourself. If you're able to build yourself, you can easily build and contribute to your community. And that's what the whole essence of what we're talking about. And that reminds me to mention that on the WBC show, as we said, if there was anybody who joined us the last month when we had the first edition of this show, the WBC is actually an intervention that is aimed at helping women to actually achieve the best in their communities and in their own personal life. Will normally organize a WBC annual conference that will take about 5 or 6 days, where we have different skill acquisition trainings. We give information about how to start your own thing and how to sustain it. We also share good practices, and then we also celebrate women who have, actually achieved by the Mother Africa Award for excellence in whatever field that a woman finds herself. Now, we would be planning another conference very soon. Information about that, where it's going to be, how you can be part of it, and how we're actually going to help ourselves to become women who are really building communities and building ourselves. We will share with you as we come every monthly on this show. So this is the episode for the July episode, and we would have the August episode. Sometimes I think it's going to be a Saturday. The last time we had the Sunday evening, but we decided to do it Saturday morning this month, and I think that's what we're going to retain. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, or for those of you who would like to invite other people to join us, it will be possibly the second Saturday next month in the morning that we would have the next edition of the WBC show. Now, we would be wrapping up quickly, but before we do that, I think there's a contribution I also want to read. It says we are not only, okay, yeah, it says, after saying the enemy is the men, they are full of ego, they want to dominate, they want to hold power, women have families to look after, so most times not enough time or energy to fight the men. Well, I don't know about fighting the men. I do know that what she's saying, it's actually about, the kind of oppression that some women in different parts of the world are going through. There is something we have not really discussed. We have not really highlighted a lot on this. We've tried to look at an holistic approach of, talking about women and their experiences, but we all know, and we should all acknowledge, that the experiences of women differ from society to society. So there are some societies that are absolutely oppressive towards women. And there are society where women, and a lot of time oppression, is also relative, it's also subjective, because sometimes the things that some people consider to be oppressive are not actually oppressive to some people, because that's just the way their society works. So as we look at a lot of issues on this show, we try to also recognize some of these peculiarities. But in terms of the general concept, the general idea that women need to thrive in order for our society to thrive. And I think we would, so in terms of all the questions we asked today, what is the position of women in the past? We have said women in the past, yes, they had some challenges, but we had women still able to take some position. And especially in terms of the past what the experience of women were before the advent of Islam and what it became when Islam, gave women. So people who erroneously, a lot of times, assume that Muslim women are oppressed, Muslim women don't have their voices and all that. What most of us here on this panel would like to say is that Muslim women are not oppressed. In fact, Islam gave the Muslim women a voice. Now we do not want to lose that voice. So people, we can talk for ourselves. And if I choose to use the hijab, I choose to use it because that is what I believe my religion wants me to do. It's not because some man is insisting that I do. Now, that does not preclude the fact that there could be instances, situations where people are forced to do things. In such situations, it is, peculiar to them. It is not the religion that has made them to do that. It is those people that have done what, that are doing what they are doing. So we need to be very clear about this. And another thing we want to say is that generally, this time is the golden age for women. Women need to do, and do. And women need to be promoted. And that is one of the reasons we have created this platform. And if there is anything you would like us to include in this platform, for those who are watching, or if you would like to be part of our discussion at any point, please do indicate, let us know. We are happy to bring some of you on as guests on our panel to contribute on any issue, some of the issues we'll be discussing that you are passionate about. So I'll
make this final comment before we go. From Adiza, she says, okay, maybe not equal voice, but men can flex, plan less, and build confidence a lot better than women. I think that attitude is one we should develop. Women are too focused on perfection, and that slows them down.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree with her. We are. Do you want to say something, Sharifa?
No, I was just reading that as well to correct the statement.
Okay. So it obviously, in terms of the things we need to do better as women so that we can achieve our full potential, there is a lot of it we can share with ourselves. And that's why we've got this show. So if you are on the panel or you are on the, if you're on the attendees and you would like to join our discussion for next month, please feel free to contact any of us. You can send us text messages on, you can text me on 07572959970, and you can also reach out to any of the panelists or any of the regular panelists if there is anything you would like us to address. So today we've said it, women, we have our golden age now, and in terms of change, women have always been the same. There is no, if there is anything changing, it is just, a movement from one point to the other. But in terms of who we are, our position in the society, it keeps evolving, and it can only get better, and we can only make it better ourselves. Is there anybody that wants to say, if you want to say any last thing before we wrap it, we call it a day for today amongst the panelists?
Highlight, point to what and which is key. I think that was very, very key. And that's the fact that we shouldn't forget our primary role. And believe me, when you focus on your primary role, then you have taken care of a lot of other things, because what that means is that you're actually dealing with the problem from the root cause. So if you focus on bringing up our children in the rightful manner, then we're dealing with this whole problem that we're saying. Who brought them up? I'm not putting blame on anyone. I'm only saying that is where we have the power to actually deal with the cause of whatever problem is the society is going through. And Allah knows this.
Amen. Sharifa, any last parting shots? Sharifa?
It's up to women, and women are up to it.
Okay, that's good. I like it. That's our slogan. For those of you joining the WBC, that is our slogan. It is up to women and women are up to it. Mudira, you've gone? I can't see you again. I want to take that perhaps you don't want to give us any parting shot. So on that note, we're going to end the discussion today. And just before we go, I'll just read the last part of Khadija's last comment. She said, I really enjoyed being with brilliant women like yourselves. Alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum to all of you. And then there is a comment from Galaxy J6. Apart from building ourselves, we should extend to others, especially little ones. I agree with you, absolutely. And as we go on in this show, inshallah, these are some of the issues we'll be addressing. Yes, thank you very much for joining us. Remember, we will be here again next month, Saturday, second Saturday of the month. We'll start 9 o'clock and we'll finish by 10 so that you can all go out and do whatever you want to do on a Saturday. But please remember to invite your friends, family, and help us share the video. If you go on YouTube, Facebook, you'll find WBC Women Building Communities. Please share, 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 share. And also remember to subscribe to our channel. Subscribe, help us to build. We're talking about building ourselves and building our communities and building people around us, the young and the old. So please join us by help us by subscribing to our channel, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and you know, when we're having these discussions, you are very much welcome to join in the discussion. And if there is anything you would like us to talk about as a woman, please feel free to text or contact any of us to pass on such information. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will call it a day for today until next month, second Saturday of the month. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Hello, salam alaikum. Salam alaikum. Can you hear me?
Salam, yeah.
Have you ended or something?
Hold on, please. I think I'm going to